Hey, welcome back to the Eric and Tony Show. This is episode 19. We have a very special guest on today with us, Mr. Tom Rhodes.
All right, I'm in the top 20 episodes.
Yeah, baby. Not even like you have to go two tens
Years
in.
from
Yeah, we got to right away trying to get you in. I'm going to work up to actually being able to know how to talk to a guest. So that's why you're 19 and not number one. But I was excited to have you on this because I met you years ago, and you've always been a really cool guy, and like you are like you're like a legend. You're like a living legend that like, and you know Tom Rhodes, and then on top of it, you have a fascinating story because like were the first guy to sign with Comedy Central. You're an international comic. I mean, I wanted to kind of go over some of your bio, but I don't want to stick too much to the parameters of like questions and stuff that I have for you and stuff, and just have like a regular chat with you. But before we turn the cameras on and stuff, we're talking about Waukesha, Wisconsin, where Eric and I are from.
The cameras aren't on?
They're on now. Yeah. They were on the whole time.
We turned the cameras.
Well, before we did, we were talking about
Just turn them off.
Mark, are they on? All right, cut it. Redo. This is episode 20 now.
Yeah, man. When I started as a comedian when I was 17.
Yeah. You had a fake
February
ID.
4th, 1984.
Okay.
So next year will be 40 years I've been a comedian. I knew I wanted to be a comedian since I was 11.
Yeah.
And I got a fake ID.
That's fucking
In
crazy.
Florida, back in the 80s, when you got your driver's license, they give you a pink slip in case you lost your license. And you would bring it into the DMV. And my brother helped me. I memorized his social security number, all of his information. And I went in with his pink slip and I got my photo taken on his ID. So it was like
No shit.
It wasn't like a doctored fake ID. This was good as
Government
gold.
issued fake.
So
That's great.
my comedy career started as a criminal act.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
So wait, did you just
So
have-
then when I started, I was a junior in high school. And then when I was a senior, I started doing one-nighters around Florida.
Yeah.
And then graduated high school. I started to like 18, 19 going on the road. I think right out of high school, I was still doing a lot of the Southern Circuit stuff. But I think around the time I was 19 and 20, well, because the guys in Orlando, they had a connection to this club in Milwaukee. So there was a club in Milwaukee that I did, but there was a fantastic comedy club.
Yeah.
And it was always packed, and it was in Waukesha. I don't know, I forget the name. It was like a simple name, like a Comedy Corner type thing like that. So when I was like 19, 20, Waukesha, Wisconsin was pretty good to me.
That's so wild.
And I was lonely and on the road, and
corn-fed Wisconsinites.
a few nice, kind people held me through the night. So I have nothing but good things to say about Waukesha.
How did you know, like at such a young age, that that's what you wanted to do? Like that's like, I mean, I still don't know what the hell I want to do. Like that's hard for most people to figure out, especially at such an early age. Was there somebody that you saw or that influenced you?
My father loved stand-up comedy. Richard Pryor was his favorite. My family's originally from Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So before cars had seatbelts, when I was a kid, I remember driving around D.C. with my dad, standing next to him with my arm around his shoulders, and him listening to Pryor cassettes, or who knows, maybe they were 8-tracks. And my dad laughing. I remember feeling his shoulders, rumble when he would laugh. And everyone in my family, cousins, aunts, uncles, all had favorite stand-up comedians. It was always something that was revered and talked about.
Okay.
And my uncle did open mic night comedy in Washington, D.C. for 1 year, 1978. I was 11 years old. Uncle Bob. I was 11 years old. My dad took me to see him, and the show was in progress, and the stage was next to the entrance. And I was wearing a Washington Redskins jacket, and the comedian on stage, when we walked in, pulled me on stage, and he interviewed me like I was the coach of the Redskins. And I was just like 11, just gave bashful, one-word answers, yes, no.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget all those people laughing, standing on that stage. Changed my life forever. And all their heads thrown back in laughter, and all the teeth in their mouth. And I know I've romanticized the story through the years in my own imagination, but Washington, D.C. is a very international city.
Yeah.
So I remember, black people, Asian people, Latino people. I remember it just seemed to me that when you were on stage doing stand-up comedy, you were speaking to the world.
Yeah.
So I was never even considered doing anything else.
Man, that's so...
From that moment on. And I became a student of comedy, Yeah. We watched Johnny Carson and, all the talk shows when they had comedians on. I'd circle the TV guide.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be in front of the TV when a comedian was on. And then HBO specials, I remember me and my dad would talk about them and, kind of analyze them, what we liked, what we didn't like.
Yeah.
And we just been a fiend for stand-up comedy.
Did you ever feel like you had to conform to a certain, because like different eras have different kind of styles of comedy, like from like the 70s, 80s, 90s now, they all kind of are a little bit tailored different, as far as like the delivery and like the cadences and like comics wearing like jackets and stuff and the tie, like the kind of talk show kind of stuff.
The 80s was a time period unto itself.
Yeah.
And it was certainly a white male dominated genre back then. And there was a lot of dudes with the jackets rolled up and the bolo tie and, I'm sure there's a couple pictures of me with that outfit.
I'm sure we can find some.
So,
cut to Tom's car. He's got
but
the bolo
but
tie
it was,
there.
it was things were more. I like it now.
Yeah.
Better because there's more diversity. There's more. There's I mean that's why I got into comedy in the first place. I mean, I always think there's a universal love element to it. I mean, not, I know some comedians who are just, very selfish, ice cold cocksuckers.
Yeah.
Who don't see it this way. But it's what I love about comedy, that I'm friends with every flavor of humanity, every color, every sexual orientation, every kind of human.
Yeah.
And I love these people. And that's kind of, we're in the same tribe.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everyone looks at it like that. But I have more in common with, a black lesbian who does stand-up comedy than like a lot of people I grew up with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's been through the trial and error of being a comedian. It's a hard business to get and I wouldn't say things change through the decades, but you change.
Yeah.
And that's the change that happens. It's your own decades that you want to go by. And I think evolving as a human being has a lot to do with evolving as a comedian.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't last for many years. Maybe they've said what they had to say, or, they stopped growing.
Yeah.
Or stopped being able to emote and express themselves.
Yeah.
But, I think we're like, we're wizards of great power.
Yeah.
When you do the apprenticeship of the first 10 years is failure and humiliation over and over, no money.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even longer than that. When you get through that period and then one day you get confident and doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah.
That's the beauty though, because you just keep getting like new. I mean, life is just a series of traumas that keep happening and stuff like a never-ending way. It's like a beach, right? So it just keeps crashing and stuff, and it's just like, unfortunately, the beach, you can't leave it, so you're just kind of stuck in that shit. But if you just can kind of keep starting to weave that into something, comedic, like they say, tragedy plus time equals comedy and stuff. And if you're not like just like the woe is me type of person, and you actually see the fucking like the silver lining in those type of tragedies and stuff. We talked about this the other day at the show. There's just like some stuff that's like it's raw, but it's funny, and that's fucking like what I want to work on. And it's just like, and I know you'll kind of get it there and stuff, but that's the best way, I think. And I think that's that kind of brothers in arms thing we have as comics, where like that's how you get through stuff. And then you relate that to like this sea of people that are all different, colors and creeds, and they have some kind of similar tie to that. And that's like what I think is the coolest thing about stand-up. Whereas like we might not have the exact same experience, but you experience something like that. And
I know exactly what you're saying, because like I'll feel like, I respect what they've done with their pain.
Yeah.
Like Lori Kilmartin.
Yeah. She's fucking hilarious.
When her father died, she did jokes about it. When her mother died of COVID, she like hilarious bits about it.
Yeah.
For me, I've always found that the hardest to do stand-up comedy when your heart is broken.
Yeah.
Like my father was killed by a drunk driver. I didn't see too much funny about that, you know?
Yeah.
So I could really respect
Yeah.
Lori Kilmartin for like knocking out these jokes about her grief, you know?
Yeah.
Then my little sister died. And like, man, shit's hard. So like if someone can really take their grief and make something funny out of it that people can relate to, because, you know, everybody experiences grief. And trauma.
You got to, that's the interesting thing too, because like, you know, losing like a parent, well, grandparents are usually the first ones to go. Then you get in that phase of life when now you're losing parents and stuff. And, you know, sometimes you have just some kind of, you know, out of the blue tragedy and shit. Then you start losing siblings and stuff. It's just like you know, you're all in line on the plane about ready to jump out and you're like, ah, fuck, I'm at this point now where I'm losing parents and stuff. Cause like I lost my dad last year too. And I joke about that on stage, but that's just, I've always talked about my dad on stage and shit like that. And it was like, and then the way that he died was very much how Don Klein would have gone. You know what I mean? So that's like, it makes it a little easier than something as tragic out of left field, like your dad getting killed by a drunk driver. But that's,
I think that transparency that comics it kind of expose themselves of is like the best thing out of like any of the arts. They're just like completely transparent. And I always find, I'm not a comic, but being around a lot of comics and a lot of Tony's friends and stuff, they're just always the best people to talk to in a room. Like they're just easiest to talk to. They'll give you a different perspective on not the normal way that the majority of people think. That it's rare to get that transparency and that perspective that most people won't vocalize. And they're just like, yeah, this is goofy. This is this like, and it's like, oh, like, okay, you're not like bullshitting me. You're just like telling me like truth. Like I feel like they're the most truthful people, you know, you can have an actual conversation with somebody that is a comic other than like opposed to like someone that I don't know, works in an office or something. I don't know. There's like something that
like
is held back. Yeah. Or like, you know, people hold back, I think a lot. And I feel my interaction with comics is like, it's the opposite. It's like, this is me, like, here we go, you know? And it's like, that's good. That's the best part about meeting people, hanging out.
There's a lot of them like that. Some of them are full of shit and hard.
Some of them are over the top with like the actor improv-y type people are just like, they're always on. It's just like, you don't gotta try to bend everything into some kind of half-assed joke. Yeah. Just have a conversation like a person.
Yeah.
That's my complaint. Now, so you obviously in high school, you're already like, I'm gonna be a comic. I'm fucking going towards this and stuff.
I started being a comedian. I bagged groceries in a grocery store when I was 16. That's
Okay.
the only other job I've ever had.
I also worked at a grocery store in high school. Yeah.
Cans on the bottom, bread on the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is funny because like, you know, that's like an
nuts at the grocery store, and they look, but like California is different, but different parts of the country, and they'll put like two things in a plastic bag.
Yeah,
there was an art to it.
Yeah. Oh my God, just like that is like the crotchety old man thing that I have, you know, because like I'm 40, I'm a dad, I'm from the Midwest, and you just see the lack of shit given by everybody at every like service industry jobs here. I'm just like, even the point where like when I was a kid, you'd have to like make small talk with people as you're bagging groceries. Like, hey, you got to make some chili with this, or whatever the fuck what you're doing and stuff like that. Now it's just like the bagger, if there even is one, is talking to the cashier and you're not even there. And if I ask a question, it's like they're inconveniencing people. I'm just like, I was at the fucking at Costco with my kid the other day and I was asking for something, and it was just like the death stare I got. I'm like, lady, this is your fucking job. Like I didn't fill out the application.
Well, funny in LA, a lot of the bagging people are like elderly seniors.
That's the other thing.
I'm always like, hey, let me do that. I always
feel bad.
Take a break. I know how to bag.
Well, like, and I don't know if it was the same thing for you working in the grocery store, but when I was a kid, it was kids in high school like myself, and then it was like women that was either like they're just a part-time job. There's like their husband had a full-time job, and there's like a housewife that just worked part-time at the grocery store. And then every once in a while there'd be like a full-time employee, and then every once in a while there's some dude that worked there through high school and shit. And all my buddies that had like, you know, that played football and stuff, and I was like, I skateboarded and I worked at a grocery store. I didn't like play sports and stuff. My dad always had me having jobs since I was a kid. So my buddy's like, oh, you're gonna be old man Klein, you're gonna be working at the grocery, be a lifer. I'm like, I'm not gonna be a fucking lifer. I'm not gonna be working there and stuff like that. But there would be guys like that worked there, and I was always scared I'd be stuck in that. And then you move out to California, and there is everybody that works there is like my age now. Like I've aged with all the grocery employees that have worked here, even like the Sunset Ralphs, Rock and Roll Ralphs. There's like still some like smoking hot shit that's worked there since I moved here. And like now that I'm moving back to Hollywood, I'm single. I'm like, I'm gonna see what Maria's up to. Follow that lead. But it's just weird that some people just kind of pocket in there. They have good benefits. I don't know what it is, but they're just like back where I'm from. It was just a temporary jumping off point if you're going to college or high school, or you're a housewife that has a part-time job. That was the only people you ever saw working at a grocery store. I don't know where we're going with that. That's my grocery store.
Oh, man.
Terror.
Grocery store story.
But you worked there while you're getting into stand-up, and that was the last job you ever had.
On the top, because they teach you to put the good stuff in the back, or under the bottom.
This kid was just fucking stealing shit from the grocery store.
I stole a lot of shit from the grocery store. We used to go if there's a mop cleanup and stuff like that. So that like mop cleanup, and me and my other buddy would race to in the liquor store. So the liquor store was separate from the actual grocery store because it's like kind of they didn't sell past 9, they didn't sell on Sunday. So it was very like, just kind of compartmentalized with booze in Wisconsin. You probably didn't know that doing all those clubs in Waukesha.
All right, I don't want to stick on this grocery store topic too much. But on the first day, I worked at this grocery store in Oviedo called Meat World, the finest meat you'll ever eat.
That's hilarious.
Meat World, that's like
finest meat you'll ever eat.
That was their slogan, finest meat you'll ever eat. And it was like an old mom and pop owned place, but this son, I think he did a little coke. He was like the manager. And so at the end of my shift, he tells me at the end of the night, all the salad dressings need to be shaken up so they'll stay fresh.
Okay.
And so, like, with the enthusiasm of a brand new employee on his first job ever, I'm like shaking up all these. And then after like 10 minutes, I look down, and then he's got all the employees laughing at the new guy.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
So,
I would have fell for it too. I'm like, oh, fuck, I gotta shake the shit out of these. This is a new job.
Anyway,
but that's like also again too that like era of work ethic where like you wouldn't get anyone to do that shit now. I'm like, nah, I ain't shaking that shit. It's not in the job description. It doesn't say shake, salad dressings and stuff. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I'm worried about my kid in the future.
Kids are too smart and too lazy now. They just know everything.
I'm just trying to be Instagram influencers.
They got their phone to be like, nah, that's not right.
I did work in the produce department when I was a kid, and I did have like one of the guys from like the meat department that was like the guys that kind of worked there forever, like that did a price check on dingleberries, and I was like, I know what the fuck a dingleberry. I'm not gonna go look for dingleberry prices and shit that. Like, that's kind of the funny thing. There's always someone trying to fuck with the young kids working at jobs. I kind of miss that. But
so how long were you in Florida before you moved like out to California, or was it like kind of like?
Oh man, I
moving around the country a little
moved
bit.
To New York City when I was 20. So we moved to Florida when I was 12. So I was there like 8 years. But I lived in New York for a year. Wasn't ready to wasn't good enough as a comedian yet. Moved back to Florida for a year, licked my wounds for a year, and then I moved to San Francisco when I was 22 and lived there for 7 years, and that's where I got good as a comedian. And again, the diversity, international audience, that really inspired me to write better, more then there was great comedians there at the time in the 90s. Brilliant time.
Who was coming up with you at the time in the 90s? In
San Francisco, Mark Maron, Patton Oswalt, Greg Proops, Margaret Cho. There was so many killer comedians. And we're all like young comedians.
Yeah.
And hanging out all the time.
It's a beautiful city too.
Yeah. So, and then when I started doing stuff for Comedy Central, and then I got a development deal with NBC to make a sitcom. I moved to LA for 2 years to do that.
Yeah,
it was only on for one season, and then I, because I lived in New York, so broke like a dog. I always swore if I ever had any money, I'd live there with style. So I moved back to New York City, got a Rockstar apartment,
oh, shit,
in the Wall Street area. And then a good friend of mine, Rich Hall, was living in London, and he thought I would do good over there. So,
so was that your first time going overseas for comedy? London?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I that was it. So he really helped me get in with London.
Okay.
Taught me you don't go to the best clubs first. You go to the peripheral rooms first and get your sea legs, find out what works. Then you go to the best clubs when you're killing.
Okay. How is that transition going from America to the UK and like the jokes like
It's
transfer.
different. Florida's different than New York.
Right,
You know?
right.
Chicago's different than San Francisco. It's different
Do you
everywhere.
think like going through San Francisco and New York, where there's more of a melting pot, it kind of gives you a better critique at the U.S. than like you would just being in like a smaller market like a Midwest or Florida, where like you don't want to talk too much shit on like your critique of the U.S. in like those areas, right? Where they're like very pro US, but then you're like on like the, you know, the crust of the country, like, you know, San Francisco or New York, where we can kind of poke more fun, or LA, where there's like, we're more aware of our like, you know, shittiness as a country. And then you go to like London and then you kind of make fun of like the US versus London, you know what I mean? Or England. And that like that kind of made it easier for you to transition into going like overseas.
Well, I mean, I think they just like they like a little intelligence in their humor. I don't think it's so much critiquing America.
Well,
or
self-awareness.
anything. I mean, it's easy. Those kind of jokes are always helpful.
Yeah.
You know, especially when most people think Americans back then. When I started going over there 98, 99. Most Americans weren't, you know, 23% had passports, and
Really?
a lot of the people that traveled.
In the late 90s? No shit.
Wasn't that I don't remember, but it was like
I'll
something,
believe it, like,
something minuscule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think they appreciated any American with some intelligence and,
Yeah.
you know, kind of world citizen mentality.
Okay. So then you also, how soon after you going to London for the first time did you end up moving to the Netherlands?
So when I got in with London, then I started playing there, getting booked there, like every 6 months or so,
Yeah.
or maybe it was more than that. The work opened up really quick for me in London, and then I was getting offered these other gigs around England. So I did that for about a year, and then I started getting offered gigs around Europe, like now, a lot of comedians can hook up these international gigs, but back then, for me, London was the key. It was like the USDA grade quality meat
Certified
stamp on the beef. So then I started doing gigs around Europe and Amsterdam.
Okay. But you moved to like Amsterdam.
I did.
How was that living in the Netherlands? I like
San Francisco and Amsterdam are like the only two places I've ever been where the first time I went there, I said to myself, I want to live here.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, man. I just like the Netherlands. The name alone kind of gets me depressed because it just seems like the Netherlands. Like you wouldn't want to live there, and then it's so far away, and there's another fucking language. You speak,
but that's the genius of the Dutch. They've reclaimed this land that was all like wet marshland.
Yeah.
They were really genius engineers of building.
I've only ever been to
and
Amsterdam.
Canals and you know,
it's beautiful, and that's funny because like the old architecture there is amazing, and even the new stuff, and like a lot of the locals don't like the new shit. Like what's that glass boat thing they have there in Amsterdam? Like I like that kind of shit. It's cool, it's innovative and stuff, but I really like the older, you know, proper style stuff when they had the little pulleys out front of the house where they fucking like
they still use this.
Yeah, they do. That's how they get the fucking couches up there.
Because the staircases are too
narrow.
thin.
Yeah.
You can't get furniture
they'll
and stuff
pull a whole
up there.
window out.
So all those old Dutch houses, they've got the little pulley thing.
Really?
Yeah.
I lived in 3 different places in Amsterdam. The last place that I lived was built in 1629.
That's insane.
crazy.
So it's before Columbus
Yeah.
had ever set eyes on North America.
Yeah,
I could just like feel the wood beams in this place. like America was still,
That's insane.
North America was still, you know, wild.
The amount of generations that lived in that house before you came in there too is just crazy. Like, and then also too the fact that it's stood up that long. Like, I don't know. I just think that my parents live in a Victorian home in Waukesha. It's built like the 1890s or something like that, and like it's a properly built house. Like the houses my dad is a contractor, and the shit he built were nice, but it was nothing compared to like the late 1800s homes, let alone the 1600s. You know, like in Europe and all those older homes and shit. But
Yeah, the ornate, those Victorian homes
the
are
crown
so great.
molding,
Like
just like it's super
the
detailed.
woodwork.
All the lath
There
and
were
plaster.
guys that did, you know, certain kind of woodwork.
Yeah, it's fucking actually square, true square corners and stuff. Like, it's fascinating. So was the selling point on the last place you lived, like it had a brand new pulley, so it was easier to move the furniture up and down and stuff? Like, I would be a real estate agent in Amsterdam. Like, oh, this got great pulley. Look at the fucking the
Killer
ratio of the
pulley
system. It's a 1-finger pull. That's like the steering wheels in the old. Well, you're an old car guy too, all right? And we're jumping around a lot here. But
We're all over the fucking place. What's
ADD.
your favorite? What's your favorite car? What's your go-to cruiser?
Right now, I'm pro Toyota. I think Toyotas are phenomenal, especially the gas mileage. But when I was younger, I was a Cadillac man.
yeah,
I've owned 4 different Cadillacs.
Okay.
And I used to, it was a kind of the blues singer thing. I was really into the blues when I was younger. And then like Elvis, when he got famous, he bought his mom a Cadillac. So
Yeah.
like when I got my sitcom, I bought my mom a Cadillac.
nice.
So, but then in the 90s, the Cadillac quality kind of
Yeah.
took a
You
shit.
don't have to go to the
Yeah,
you can go
it
back to
wasn't-
the 80s.
So like it was
yeah.
the old used ones that I had were great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, even though they got like 8 miles to the gallon.
Oh yeah.
I would keep a Honda in the trunk in case I broke down.
right.
You know, they were like massive.
Yeah.
What years did you have, and what models?
First one I had was a 78 sedan DeVille.
Okay.
It was triple white.
Yeah.
It had white paint, white roof, and white
Subtle,
leather
right?
seats.
Wait on. Yeah.
And then I had a 66 Eldorado convertible when I got the sitcom, but that was like one of the...
Was that front wheel drive? Or that was until 68?
I don't remember, but I would never own a classic car after that. It was such a headache.
There
It
you go,
was such a
Tommy.
lesson.
Confirmed it
dude,
for
It
you,
was
buddy.
so
Sorry.
much money, and
Yeah.
but then when I moved back
never owned
when I moved back from Amsterdam to Los Angeles for the second time, when I lived in Koreatown, around that time I started driving used BMWs.
Okay.
I have an old family friend that owns a garage here
Yeah.
in LA, and she got her mechanic to he was getting a new car,
Yeah.
and he sold me this like BMW. What was it? Oh my God. Yeah, it wasn't a 7 Series. It was like a 5 something. It was pimp.
Yeah. What year?
Like a 91.
Okay. Convertible?
No, it had a sunroof on it though.
What was the one the Cadillac that you had, the convertible that you had like video of you running up and down Hollywood? Is that your Eldorado?
That must have been the black
Okay.
Eldorado. Yeah.
That's just that is the most iconic thing you can do in Hollywood, just driving a Cadillac down Hollywood Boulevard. And then in that time period too, because it just looked different. Even when I moved out to California 20 years ago in 2003, Hollywood Boulevard was just different back then. It's just not the same as it is now. And then you have like just the car culture has shifted so much because there used to just be a lot of like Wisconsin, if you had money, you'd have a Honda. Ooh, you got a Honda. The family's doing well. Then you come out here and everyone's Hondas now turn into like a BMW or a Mercedes. And then now it's just like Rolls Royces, Bugattis, Maybachs, and all that kind of shit. Just like this really crazy, $250,000, $500,000 cars and stuff like that. It's just different. Like
When I was younger, I think I wanted that like a little flashiness. Not never. I'd only owned used cars my whole life.
But there's a flashiness.
But there was like a certain kind of cool factor.
Yeah.
Now I want to blend in, and now I'm older.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I want to blend in and drive in the slow lane.
And you want your car to work too. That's the other thing
Yeah.
about like the classic cars, and you hit that on the fucking head, man. Like I got a 1967.
I got a Camry hybrid. I get 52 miles to the gallon
Really?
on the highway.
Damn, I thought my
that's
Honda was doing good.
insane.
Yeah.
That
It's
is
so
insane.
good.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean,
It's
what does
such
it cost?
a great car.
It costs like what to fill it up? Like
Air
$60
conditioner's nice
or
and cold.
something.
Yeah.
Like killer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's attractive now. Like the older I
Yeah.
get too, it's like, okay, my truck gets like 9 miles
I got
a
lucky
gallon.
too. I got it during the pandemic when everything was locked down in California, and went in the Toyota dealership. Everybody's wearing masks. There's like 3 customers in there.
Yeah.
It was like it was a great time to buy because then I think they've had
And they ran out of chips or whatever. And then that's like,
and then I think there's like a waiting list for their hybrids
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah, Eric and I both have gas closers. I have like the 67 Cutlass. Came out the same year you were born.
Beautiful car.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But it's also 8 miles to the gallon. it also is like a weird thing in life lessons because like, before my marriage failed, people go, how do you like, how's marriage? I'm like, it's like this, like nothing's ever disappointed me and cost me more money than my car. And I was like, well, I got to change that story. Yeah. But it's the same thing though, because it's a head turner, and it is like you're driving in a parade every time you drive down the street and stuff. But I never bought it for the flashiness. I just like the aesthetics of classic cars. I like the simplicity. I had a motorcycle.
Muscle cars are cool.
Yeah,
too,
and it's just like it keeps you more involved in driving, right? So like even as much as like you or I might like our new cars that are fuel efficient stuff, you can get distracted with the fucking dash displays and all this kind of shit, and you're like just doing too much stuff. That's why and then like this generation of kids now, they're on their phones, so there's just 1,000 bells and whistles that are distracting. But like back in the day, it was just a fucking gas gauge, and you'd smell. Is it running lean? Is it running hot? Like if it's burning oil, you're more in tune. It's kind of like a motorcycle, so it kept you more aware as a driver. Now I feel like I'm a worse driver with my fuel efficient car because I don't care about anything. It always starts up. It gets great gas mileage. The air conditioning is cool. I just gotta not fall asleep while I'm driving it. Before I was like, this thing to fucking start on fire on me again. Yeah.
Always on the highway, the car driving too slow in the fast lane is a Tesla.
Yeah.
Really?
And you see their big like TV screen on, and they're why are you doing 55?
Yeah.
In the fast lane. Slower
so I take it you're
right.
never going electric vehicle.
No, but I went to Burning Man, and I was really happy when all those rich people tried to leave and their Teslas got stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
I was like,
how is that? I've never been. I've just only seen it on TV and pictures of people doing all that. What the hell is that like?
I think you should go to church and read the Bible.
Go, yeah, you need to go.
It's too much for you.
Is it? It's just...
No, it was cool. There was a lot of unique experiences, but the weather conditions are brutal.
Yeah,
it was really hot.
So it's just like
dust storms, and then when this big rainstorm came and turned everything into mud, and it was just like satanic mud that would clump up on your shoes. So if you tried to walk in it, you got like 40-pound shoes. And
how many days were you there?
Even it was supposed to be for 7, but I was there for 10.
You were there for 10 fucking days?
I was one of the first to arrive and one of the last to leave. I looked at because all these
oh my God,
and it was like COVID.
Yeah.
It was like COVID because they told everyone to shelter in place and that the gate was closed and that you can't be out walking around or even riding a bike in this mud. And all these people were like, oh, I heard it's a lie, and I read something online. And
what?
Somebody said it's there, you can get out, the gate's open, and all these people were trying to get out the day after it rained, and all their like hundreds of vehicles got stuck in the mud.
That's hilarious.
And they said no emergency vehicles will come and get you. They like laid it out, and all these people went for it anyway. And I was on this outer road that led to the exit, and this big pickup truck pulling a long heavy rig, and I showed him on my phone. I said, have you seen this photo on the news?
Yeah.
All these hundreds of vehicles stuck in the mud at the gate. I go, even if you can get through this mud, you're not getting through past this. And the guy goes, I think I'm going to go for it anyway. And then he went. And like I showed the guy the proof. And so I love my car. And I wouldn't want to ruin it so I waited until several days after it had rained and the mud dried up before I would drive my car out of there.
Yeah.
And then normally they burn the man on the Saturday. This year they burned it on the Monday, and then they burned the temple on the Tuesday. So when they burn the man, it's a big party and everybody's, having fun. But when they burn the temple, because a lot of people put their pain in there.
Okay.
Like you go in the temple and you see notes people have written about everything, divorce, domestic violence, every horrible thing you could imagine that would cause people pain. So everyone's like completely silent when they burn the temple. But all these people had left when they had the chance to, once they opened up the gate, And I looked at that Temple Burn like Hendrix at Woodstock. Like everybody remembers Woodstock, and it was this, great love-in for 3 or 4 days, but it rained.
Yeah.
And there was this nasty mud at Woodstock.
Yeah.
And Jimi Hendrix closed it, and there was only like whatever people went to Woodstock, 80,000, 90,000. There was probably only like 20,000 left when Jimmy played, and he did a breakfast set.
Yeah.
So I looked at that Temple Burn like that's the hardcore state of I'm watching Jimmy's set.
Yeah, for real.
So what do you guys do the whole time? Like you're there? I know it's like, isn't it like art pieces and like walk around and everybody kind of dresses kind of like liberal Mad Max kind of vibes, right?
Yeah,
like,
and
it's like a bargaining
it's better
system.
to ride a bike around. You got to have a bike, and you need a beach cruiser. A regular bike isn't going to cut it.
And like there's
are these art installations, and then these art cars.
Yeah,
and even without that, there's just the stars are magnificent there, and seeing the moon rise every day over this mountain.
I heard it's a lot of like. Not like bargaining, but like you do services for other services. Like
there's no money.
Yeah.
So everybody
how does that all work?
Gives things away, and it's like it's a temporary utopia of kindness.
Where do you like sleep? Do you guys bring tents or sleep in your car, or like is there RVs or like
all of that?
All of that. Okay.
Yeah, I had a shift pod.
Oh, those are sick. Shift pods. I saw you did some Yosemite stuff in your Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with the mountains out here. That's what kind of
love Yosemite. Oh man, there's so much great nature in California.
Beautiful, right? It's like that's
Avenue of the Giants. That's my big tip.
Yeah. It's do you ever get into any backpacking or do anything like that out here?
No, a little bit, but I prefer nature you can drive up to.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see all the same beautiful spots on your car for sure.
Up by Avenue of the Giants, up in like San Francisco area. Did you ever go to Kirby Cove?
I've heard of that. Where's that?
It's right across
by
the
Stinson
bay.
Beach?
Sausalito area. So you I don't know where that Sausalito Beach is, but you're looking back at San Francisco and you're in this fucking amazing, like there's a lot of eucalyptus trees, so it smells great.
Yeah.
But like it's again super non-skilled. You can almost drive up to the campsite, but it's very much in the nature, very much isolated and stuff. But
it's an old missile silo.
There's also an old missile silo over there too, yeah.
Yeah.
But not like right where you're camping. You can kind of walk that kind of stuff, but it's just one of our buddies is a park ranger and a firefighter. Had like his wedding reception there last year, and it was fucking like the most beautiful scenery I've seen. But then also at night you're looking back over like San Francisco, one of your favorite cities, at night, and it just fucking looks amazing and stuff. So just food for thought next time you're up there at the Avenue of the Giants.
Okay,
pop down.
Like Avenue of the Giants is way up there.
Yeah,
but Kirby Cove, it's by Sausalito.
So wait, is it more like Muir Woods?
No, Muir Woods is in Marin County.
Okay. My geography's all
it's up there. I think it's like 25 miles from before you get to Eureka.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It runs right along the 101. You got to get off the 101 and drive the Avenue of Giants. And then a little further past Eureka and Arcata is Fern Canyon. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's just so much. I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of like.
They filmed one of the Jurassic Parks
in
Fern Canyon, but it's...
Yeah. That's what it feels like when you're up there in the woods like that. You feel like you're going to see a dinosaur come out of the woods because everything's just so like giant, the trees and everything. It's super cool.
Or Bigfoot too, man. The Pacific Northwest too. For real, there's like I would not be surprised. Not that I'm like just like I have like clay castings of like Bigfoot's feet, but I'm just like, why would that not happen? Like you know how fucking dense those woods are, and there's no one's ever going back there. Like you big fan of the Pacific Northwest?
Love the Pacific.
Portland,
I love the lushness. Love Portland. Love Oregon. I love all the West. You know, I just took this epic trip from. I had some shows up in Montana, but I went through Monument Valley. Came in the southwest corner of Colorado and took small roads. To Aspen, saw this country guy I love, Charlie Crockett, in concert 2 nights at the Belly Up, the small club in Aspen. Saw him third night in a row at the Rocky Mountain Folk Festival in Lyons, Colorado. And then I spent a couple days in Denver with Josh Blue.
Okay.
Great guy.
Oh, yeah, Josh Blue.
And we did sets at the Comedy Works in Denver. And then I took my time going through Wyoming. I really love vintage clothes and thrift stores and stuff. And Colorado, Wyoming, Montana. That's I think a lot of these places haven't been picked over by, a lot of the, industry of vintage clothes. And you can find nice vintage Western wear.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know I was going to Burning Man when I started this trip. My big trip was to just enjoy the West and go up to Montana and take my time coming back. And I got invited to Burning Man by a friend of mine. And I only had like Western cowboy clothes.
That's hilarious.
When I went there.
You just got your whole wardrobe on your trip.
Everybody, a lot of people had, a
lot of jade.
costumes and characters and cosplay stuff. So why can't I be a cowboy?
Yeah, right? You fit right in. Why not?
Baptized in your cowboy gear in the mud.
Yeah. I feel like you'd like have like the best like opportunity to do that, like get an RV and like just travel all over the country, see all these awesome places, and then be able to make money on the road too. Like that's like everyone's dream, right? Like have you done that? Like you've got an RV and like
no. I mean I've just done it in cars. I like cars, but I mean if you were doing like theaters and selling tickets and making money, tour bus would be awesome.
Yeah. That'd be another way to do it for sure.
That'd be real cool.
Driver,
Comedians who like tour at that level, that's pretty pimp.
Yeah. Luxury.
I had a brother-in-law
where you have a driver where you're not.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
you do the gig.
But then that's the thing though too, where you have like the the driving the car thing is like, if you like driving the open road and then you're more again attuned to this, what you're driving through and stuff, as opposed to being on like the tour bus and you're just playing cards or drinking in the back and you're kind of missing a lot of the shit that's going past you and stuff. Like,
you can always look out the window. I think it'd be pretty fun to have a driver though.
I'm not saying it would
have some
be
beers
terrible,
and just kind of.
I'm saying there's like there's those different parts and pockets of that kind of experience that I think you'd appreciate both ends. I know when I'm moving out here, driving a moving truck is the fucking worst way to tour the countryside driving cross country, because like coming through Denver and you're coming down the mountains and it's fucking raining and like shit, your brakes start locking up. I'm like, if this thing fucking fails, I'm going to have to jump out and like send all my belongings over the cliffside and stuff, and I'll be starting to, or probably just die. But it's a very white knuckle way of driving. It's not fun.
No, it's when I've moved a couple times like that.
Yeah.
And when you're driving and then you hit like a big bump and you hear like all the glass and stuff. You're like, shit.
There goes the family heirlooms. None of that shit's fun. But when you have that casual drive across country and you could stop here and there, not trying to make any time frames.
Yeah, there's so many great places in America. I try to go up to Montana every couple of years. In August, it's heavenly up there.
Okay.
And man, there's just so many cool places. Cody, Wyoming. Really enjoyed Cody.
Wyoming I've been to a couple times. I used to go backpacking with I have a crazy Vietnam vet uncle and stuff, and like with like the Grand Tetons, which is just outside of like Jackson Hole, which is another cool fucking city.
It's right south of Yellowstone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there was like a really cool like record store there and stuff, and like there's a bunch of cool like weird Wyoming punk bands and stuff, kind of like Ramones-esque. And I just remember like I was like, this is where they're from. This is cool. I was like 17 at the time. So then like then going up in the mountains and you just see like just fucking nature. And it just also too didn't really believe in altitude sickness until I got it. And I was like, oh, that's a real thing. I'm like, nah, fucking heights gonna make me sick. And I was like, I had fucking terrible bad altitude sickness. I got half my face was like sunburnt off just because of the way the sun was moving as I was climbing up the mountain and shit. It was a real tough life lesson. It's like the world will fuck you up, man. But beautiful countryside and stuff. But there again, too, there's that thing where there's like, there are some kind of strange people. We pulled up to this like little strip mall motel and they had a pool table. Now this is a couple years later when I was doing the cross country drive touring from Wisconsin, and I was 21. I go in this little bar at the motel, and this fucking giant dude that's like 6'7" just shakes my hand. He's like, "My name's Chet. We can shake hands. We can fight." I'm like, "I'll take the first one." My brother's like, "How do you know what he says first?" I'm like, "I don't fucking know." but he pulled up to the fucking bar in like summertime with a snowplow on his mail Jeep, just like just that type of person and stuff. And you're just like, you kind of got to watch how you tread with like the real townies like that. Yeah, it is like Funny Farm. Yeah. But northern, Wisconsin and the UP has that kind of like same beautiful countryside, but there's just kind of some odd people. I don't know if they're trying to like evade justice for some crimes or whatever, or what the fuck's going on, but they're just like, they got the 6-shooter. The other thing too, man, we pulled up and there's a little pizzeria and the guy rode up on a horse with a 6-shooter on his hip, like an actual real fucking cowboy. Probably got some of his clothes when you were driving through there and stuff. Like
I got his hat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I like Vancouver. I like Portland. I like
Did you go to Hendrix's grave I've
been there a couple times. I went there years ago when it was still on the flat area.
What do they change it to now?
And I got a grave rubbing.
Oh yeah.
That I've framed.
Nice.
It's hung in every apartment I've ever lived in.
I feel like you're the kind of guy that also probably go to Jim Morrison's grave.
I've been there. Oh my God.
I knew it.
Yeah, I've been to Morrison's grave countless times. But the Hendrix grave is in Renton, Washington. Yeah. And they moved it to a different part of the cemetery and they built a mausoleum for the Hendrix family. So that stone that used to be flat on the ground, the headstone is now like...
When did they move that? Because
20 years ago or something.
No shit.
Yeah. Because I went I think it was 10 years ago I went. I know it was a mausoleum now.
Yeah.
But the first time I went, I brought some big sketch paper and some...
I was also amazed at how many forts they have up in that kind of indigenous stories they have up in Seattle. I didn't really know there's the conquering and just it's almost like kind of the East Coast and the colonies and stuff, but on the Pacific Northwest. I didn't know that kind of history because we don't really learn about people coming over here from the east and then migrating, but I know they're flanking us from the west as well.
Yeah, and then all the Spanish missions.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was talking about.
Day's walk. But Oregon's pretty funny. Everything's named after this guy, John Day.
Huh.
There's the John Day fossil beds. There's John Day this, John Day. So he was one of these early pioneer guys. And I guess the first fort was where Astoria, Oregon is now.
The Goonies is set, right?
Yeah, great film.
Yeah.
And a great little town. I love Astoria.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to that Noah's Ark in, what is it? North Carolina or
no.
Kentucky? No,
I've heard of that place.
Yeah.
That's a
so
nutcase Australian
this
guy.
John Day guy, at one point he was tricked by the native people who lived there, or they were pissed off at him and they took his clothes and he walked 150 miles naked back to the fort.
Jesus Christ.
Some really interesting history.
Huh. Go check out John Day in Oregon.
Yeah, I guess, people had so much respect for him protecting his feet and his ball sack.
Let's
name everything after this guy.
This poor guy. Name all this shit.
Yeah. But in Montana, there's a Hooray for America Museum in Polson. Forget the name of it. America the Great, something like that.
Huh.
Pretty interesting. These guys got all this military equipment and vehicles. It's interesting.
But he's waiting for the second something goes south. He's like, all right, activate everything. Fucking fuel it up.
The ultimate prepper.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. It's under the guise of being a museum. He's got everything's got treads on it and stuff.
We had a museum in Milwaukee. We had sketches of Jeffrey Dahmer from when he was a kid in school. Had skulls and shit that he drew, and they had it all displayed in this. That was
an antique shop, man.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing, Antiques Museum.
I'll tell you what's cool in Milwaukee is the art museum. Even though the art in there is good, but the art museum itself was done by this Spanish architect Calatrava.
You talking about the wing thing?
Yeah. He does all these kind of winged bridges. 20, 30 years ago, they invented some kind of new bendable steel.
Yeah.
Kind of changed architecture.
Yeah.
And then this guy
I remember when they built that. It was a big deal.
Yeah,
It is a big
huge.
deal. There's a Calatrava there.
Yeah.
The 9/11 memorial in New York City, the subway entrance there
That's a Calatrava.
at Ground Zero is a Calatrava.
It's funny because that
So be proud, Milwaukee.
I know. We should be proud.
You got a Calatrava.
It's lost on us two knuckleheads because
Yeah,
we're too
we're like,
young
what?
to appreciate
Just
that.
cheese and beer.
Yeah. Is it the Brewers? Talking about the Brewers? I don't care for our new stadium.
Are you guys Brewers fans?
I am. I
grew up going to the games when I was a kid with my dad. That was a thing. But
Okay.
it was County Stadium.
yeah.
The County
I like
Stadium.
County Stadium. We're both County Stadium fans.
That's the shit.
Not what they have now.
Not,
What they have now is like a Mall of America.
I
ballpark.
went to. I've been to many games at Wrigley Field. I'm a big baseball fan. I mean, and even if you're not a Cubs fan, you got to appreciate Wrigley Field.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a work of art.
Yeah.
It's like the Netherlands. It's just, wow, it's so old.
Yeah.
It's so charming. It's
The ivy everywhere.
so
yeah.
beautifully designed.
Yeah.
So, and I've sat in like so many different vantage points in Wrigley Field through the years. I mean, I prefer the bleachers, but this particular time, about 10 years ago, the Cubs were playing the Brewers, and I sat on the upper deck behind home plate. Amazing view. Never had sat there before. And the Cubs won, and the game was ending, and there was these two Brewer fan guys behind me, and I asked the dude if he would take a photo of me, and then he took the photo and then handed me the phone back real quick, and then the way they darted off, I knew something was screwy, and I looked at the phone. He had flipped the screen and taken photos of himself.
That's hilarious.
So I will never forgive the Brewers for that. It's the organization's fault. And
Wrigley Field hasn't like changed though. It's always been like that, right?
It's one of the few.
well, I remember when they put lights in there in the 80s.
But like
That was a big deal.
They didn't like kind of tear it down and
No,
build
no,
it back.
it's
It's
not.
But
always
then they built the modern press box. Well, like
little
10 years ago.
little things.
like
Like they're
they're
like
different.
They bulldozed our. So we
Because
got
when
really
before
cool.
it had lights, when there was only day games and there wasn't that big modern press box,
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I think it's interesting that John Dillinger, the Cubs were his favorite team.
Yeah.
And when he was public enemy number one, he was the first public enemy number one, who the term was invented for.
Yeah.
He often went to Cubs games.
Yeah.
Everybody wore black suits and black hats.
yeah.
There was no facial recognition technology back then.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's fucking
cool.
So I always,
Yeah, Chicago's got a cool mystique with the mob, and they used to always come up to Wisconsin and like Milwaukee. So like Al Capone had some hangs in around our like neighborhood, like Brookfield.
I'm a big Dillinger buff.
Yeah,
It
so-
was at some place up in Wisconsin where
we
he
used to
was
go camping
hiding.
up there. Yeah,
Lake
it was,
Geneva.
no, it's not like,
Was it
no,
Lake
no,
Geneva?
No, you're talking about where the shootout is from.
Yeah.
Public Enemies, the Johnny Depp film, right? Or when he plays Dillinger.
I didn't see it, but yeah,
Too great. So
but
they-
it's in Dillinger's
Little
life. He-
Bohemia is what it's
That's
called.
it.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
grandfather was like worked for what they called it was the CCCs. It was like it was kids that were under 18 that worked for like the army. And they put up power lines. He was a lineman, and his camp was right by Little Bohemia. So we used to go there all the time. But they still have all the bullet holes that came through with the Tommy guns, the gas cannons that they shot through and stuff. And that place was kind of just like an old relic until that movie came out. Now you can't get a fucking reservation like, weeks out. But this is like 4 hours north of Milwaukee.
Yeah,
But
it's like middle of nowhere.
but-
it's really
if you happen to find yourself up there, you should go up there because it's on a beautiful lake and it's super nostalgic, and they have some old of era cars out front. But it takes you right back to that kind of like element because the trees are still the same fucking trees. Nothing's really changed apart from like the staff there and stuff, and like it's the same footprint of the building. But yeah, there's a lot of, and then also too, like these guys were driving up on the run from the law from Chicago, and it takes you 4 hours in a modern car. They're driving these like V8 Fords in the fucking darkness with those like shitty antique headlights. You know what I mean? Like just the deer that like run out there and stuff. It's just like man, I would be bald and like I would like be like just have a heart attack in no time back then with the amount of stress levels they're going through. But
Yeah, but they, I mean, like, and they're wearing flashy suits.
yeah,
They're in the woods in Wisconsin.
exactly.
Of course, someone's going to tip them
Yeah.
off. And then there was another time where
It's a great point.
where he got busted.
Yeah, I
and
think those
he
guys
was
are
almost
from
to
around
Mexico
here.
another time, and he got busted in Tucson. Him and his crew.
Yeah.
And it's during the Depression. Everybody's wearing overalls and no shoes.
They don't have buttons on their shirts and shit.
These guys are wearing flashy pinstripe suits from Chicago.
Solid gold cigar holders.
There's nothing fishy there.
Yeah. Yeah, but back to the vintage ballparks, though. So Dodger Stadium is probably my current favorite ballpark that's around because it looks a lot like, I think it's built in 62 and ours. The old County Stadium was built in like the 50s, but I think it's the same architect. So it's, open air stadium and stuff. And it looks from that vantage point from behind home plate, it looks like it's the same ballpark that we had as a kid, except for where there's palm trees here. We had a slide where Bernie Brewer would go down every time there's a home run and shit for like the home team and stuff.
Would Bernie Brewer flip the screen if I asked him to take a photo of me?
No, he'd be in the picture.
Never.
With you. He's got super long arms.
You can't be Dodger Stadium. The sun goes down.
It's
you got the palm trees and the mountains, and this right as the sun goes down.
Yeah,
the game starts.
Yeah,
it's you can't beat that effect.
Yeah, it's
day
a cool
game at Dodger Stadium though is terrible. It's like that's the hottest thing you'll ever experience. Like there's you got to be in one of those little bougie boxes and stuff. I do say this much though, as far as Dodger Stadium, they went a little LA, a little Hollywood with all the LED screens and flashy lights and stuff because County Stadium didn't have that kind of stuff. We had like those yellow, bug lights, and it just smelled like stale beer and fucking cigarettes.
County Stadium was a shit. It was literally like a factory that happened to have a baseball field in it. It was fucking awesome. Like Bob Euchre still is our broadcaster there. You'd see him.
He's still the he must be in the front row.
Yeah. Get up. And he would be walking around. You'd see him like when we go when I was a kid, like you'd be able to see him and he'd just be walking around like, hey, I'm just grabbing a beer and gonna go, do the game. It was just such a cool, it was shitty, but it was like cool though.
They shot Major League the movie at our stadium and stuff. That's why they got Bob Euchre on there.
Yeah,
but they just for whatever reason had that'd be the Indians. I don't think they got a better deal with them or something like that.
yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, man.
Good old.
It's an additional reason why those movies are so great. Well, we still got time to go see a Dodgers game before the end of the season. But,
plenty of tickets now, I guess. Yeah, I'd like it. Baseball is my favorite sport, and I like soccer. Always the year after the World Cup, baseball kind of suffers for me.
Yeah.
Because I get so into the World Cup, but now would be a good time for me to go see a game.
Okay. World Cup's going to be here next year, right?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
That recently.
I was lied to
by
my British
3 years now.
My British coworker was like, "It's going to be crazy here next year. The World Cup's here." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, it's
I don't follow soccer.
2022 to 2026. Yeah.
Well, we are running out of time on the podcast, but we have time to get a Dodgers game in before the end of the season. But
I would like it.
Yeah,
and I mean, like the Yankees are in last place. Like the 1 year I'm not paying attention.
That's probably why they're in last place.
Everything I wanted to have,
they're like Tinkerbell. They need you to like fucking clap or whatever the hell he does to get their fucking spirits up. Yeah,
let's do it though.
Okay. So Tom, I know you got a new special out right now, right?
No.
What? No. Did you have a new album come out or something this year?
No, it's been a couple years. Oh yeah, I put out I've been putting out clean albums.
Okay.
I put out a clean album.
Okay. But this year?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not a complete moron. All right.
Yeah.
Whew. Edit that out, Mark.
And you have a podcast too, you do, right?
Yeah, Tom Rhodes Smart Camp. I put it out sporadically to try to.
You got like 300 and some episodes.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good. I was like, I saw that.
We're working at this. We're only on 19.
I was like, all right, 19. Here we go.
Yeah.
Fucking Tom's going to just fucking eat us alive on this thing. God, this is like what? It's fucking.
Yeah.
I took a break last year, so I just started putting out episodes again.
When did you start that podcast?
2009.
Okay. So you got a couple
some
years
time,
on us. All right.
Yeah.
I don't feel as bad then.
14 years.
All right.
Yeah. Catch up to you. Watch out. We're coming for you, Tom.
You got it.
Yeah.
You can have it.
Cool.
Podcast, man. It's, it's difficult. Come up with clever content week after week.
Hey, man, you know what? We're just trying to have a cool conversation with a guy that we like to hang out with. So
I like that. Well, then I guess it's not so hard that way.
Takes the pressure off. So we'll easily move up to that 365 or whatever you have.
I feel like we're like the Chris Farley bit on SNL when he's like interviewing Paul McCartney. Like, yeah, it's like
remember that time
you said
died?
you're dead?
Yeah.
You were really dead, were you?
Yeah.
They're just like fucking idiots on the couch, just like happen to talk to interesting people. So
it's a good format. It's good.
Thanks. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
man.
Thank you, Tony. I love you, respect you. It's great to, gab it up with you, man. It's always good spending time with you.
Yeah, man. I feel the exact same way. That's why I'm super happy and humbled that you'd come onto our podcast and deal with my other half, Eric, here. Trying to ditch this guy for 25 years, but
man.
we ended up moving out to California together.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
At _ Tom Rhodes on Instagram. That's it.
YouTube channel, website.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel, King of Haha, but you can just search Tom Rhodes.
Okay.
And and I've been putting my podcast out on video. So YouTube is the place to find me.
Well, look him up, Tom Rhodes.
And Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram.
More importantly, on the gram. You can find me at Tony Klein Comedian on Instagram and my website, TonyKleinComedian.com. Eric?
You can find me at Eric Rustler for Instagram, and you can find this podcast on The Eric and Tony Show on YouTube, The Eric and Tony Show on Spotify, and every day put up little 60-second clips of every podcast we do, so you can check it out if you just want to see a little bit of it. Also go to theericandtonyshow.com to buy a t-shirt, hat, coffee mug, beer mug, something like that. Help support the show. And thanks again, Tom Rhodes, for being on the show.
Rhodes, yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Cool.